Hey everybody, welcome back. Hope you had a wonderful week. This is going to be part 2 of the video tutorial from last week about LinkedIn analysis dashboard app with Plotly. So last week we focused on file A and B, and we created this dashboard right here without the numbers. So this week we're going to focus on the callback, and the callback is what creates the interactivity in your Plotly dashboard app. So this callback is what allows us to have the user choose a different date, and then these numbers change accordingly. Right? The database is filtered, the data is filtered, and the new numbers come in. So this is all about the callback. If you want to learn more about the callback or very deep overview of the callback, just click on the video above. I talk a lot more about the callback. But for now, let's go into jup-c-small cars, this file right here. And also we're going to use jup-d file right here. This is, as a reminder, in my GitHub, jup-c, jup-d. If you want a Python file, a .py file, just download this one, c and d final analysis.py. If you downloaded these files last week, I would refresh, because I did change C and D, and C and D I just added or changed one line of code. So just download them again just to be safe. Okay, so let's go into jup-c and create this interaction right here. These numbers change whenever the user changes a different date. So how do we do that? And go to this file, jup-c-small cars, go all the way down. The layout stayed the same, so I didn't change anything in the layout. And go to this, updating the 5 number cards. We'll go into the callback decorator, and then we'll talk about the callback function. So the callback decorator. In the callback decorator, we have 2 inputs, and we have 5 outputs. Each output is going to refer to each one of this HTML2 component. So there's 5 HTML components here, and that's why we have 5 different outputs and 5 different objects that we return in the callback function. The 2 inputs that we have are the date values of each date picker. So this date picker, my date picker start, the date value is actually the date attribute, my date picker start. This is the ID of a DatePickerSingle component in dash, and we're going to take the value that is assigned to the date attribute, and the value that is assigned is this value right here, January 2018 or January 6, and this date refers to the my date picker end, refers to this value right here, which refers to this value right here. All right, so this date is going to be called start date in the callback function first argument, and the second argument, end date, is going to refer to this second input, to this date. So I'm taking a copy of the data frame, the connections data frame that we built above. Remember, right here we build a connections data frame, which is from the CSV GitHub, which is you can replace with your own data from LinkedIn, the connections Excel sheet. Make a copy of it, because inside the callback function you always want to make a copy. You don't want to use you don't want to change the global data. Make a copy of that data, and then we're going to filter the data frame so it only the connected on column, which is this column right here, the connected on column, which is all the dates, the data frame is going to be filtered so it only has rows between the start date and the end date chosen by the user. Start date and end date. So we're filtering the data frame, and then we're taking the length of the data frame, because every row in the data frame is a separate connection. This is one connection, this is another connection. So if we just measure the length of the data frame, the number of rows, we'll have the number of connections. So if this number of connections is 100, then I'm returning this as the first object. This will be 100. And the first object refers to the very top output component property. This will be 100. Now, what is this? This component property belongs to the content connections ID. So if we go up, content connections ID is right here. This ID of the HTML H2 component, and this is the children. So this will be 100, right? So if I'm changing the start date to January 4th, end date March 1st, 2021, now this connection is just 301, is the new data that goes into right here, 301, which is this 301, which is going backwards, this, which is this, this, which is the length of the filter data frame by dates. Let's see another example. If I'm choosing January 4th to March 6th of 2021, what I'm doing is actually taking the March 6th, January 4th to March 6th, filtering the data frame, and then I'm taking the length of the data frame company column, the unique values. So this is, it's going to take only the unique companies. I don't want repetition of companies. I only want to count the number of unique companies inside the company column. So this is fake data, so I have pretty much 10 companies throughout the whole time. So the length is going to be 10, and this is 10. Company's number is 10, and this is the second object, so it refers to the second output component property, 10, and this 10 is the children of the content companies. Output corresponds to the layout. So content companies IDs, content companies is right here. This is the HTML H2 component, and the children becomes 10. And this is right under the company's text. So this is right here. This becomes 10, right? And we're doing the same thing with invites received, invites sent, and reactions. So if you go down here, you'll see we get we make a copy of the invites data frame. We are filtering the data frame date column. The date column here is called sent at, not connected on, it's sent at. Filtering the data frame. I can print it out if you want, so you can see how the data frame looks like. And then I'm going to filter the data frame so in the direction column it only equals values of incoming. So I'm only going to have rows in the invitation data frame, only rows where it's equal to incoming, only these rows. So these rows are not going to be in the data frame, they're going to be dropped out. So because I only have incoming rows, the data frame is smaller. And if I measure the length of the data frame, how many rows, this is actually the number of messages that are incoming. So this is one number, this is outgoing, this number, and then I just return it as the third and the fourth object into the third and the fourth output component property, children and children of these IDs. And these IDs in the layout equal this HTML2 component and this HTML2 component. Remember, the IDs have to be different. In the layout, you can't have duplicate IDs. You have to have separate IDs or unique IDs. The last output is the children of the content reactions. So it's the output of right here, this children, which is under the reactions text right here. So this output is going to be influenced by the last object returned in the callback function. And this last object is this right here. So how do we get there? How do we make this? This is just a copy of the reactions data frame, and I'm filtering this data frame date column. So we only have dates between the start date and the end date chosen. And then I'm just counting the length of this data frame, because reactions, I have different reactions. I have a like, a love, or smile, or empathy, but every reaction is one row. So all I have to do is measure the length of the data frame, and this will give me the number of reactions, which is right here, which is obviously this one right here. Okay, so remember, the first output from top to bottom goes from left to right. So the most left return object is the most top output. The most right object returned, or the last object returned on the right, is the last output on the bottom. Okay, so this is how we build our the connections between the date input and the output HTML H2. All right, so now that we did the small cards, now we're going to go into the DatePicker analysis, where we are going to build these graphs. We're going to build a line chart, the bar chart, pie chart, and the word cloud. So every time the date changes, the charts are going to change accordingly. You see how the word cloud changed, the pie chart changed a little bit. All the data is going to change inside these graphs. Before, I just had an empty graph component belonging to dash. Now I'm going to have a plot that is either a line chart, a bar chart, and so on and so on. Before I forget, you don't need to use the DatePickerSingle. I use that component. You can use a DatePicker range, which is probably better. I just did it because I had other plans, and then I just stay with it. But the DatePicker range is probably a lot faster and easier to use. Okay, so let's go back and let's use the DatePicker analysis file that is in my GitHub under the video as well. DatePicker. All right. Oh, but quickly, just a commercial break. If you're benefiting from my tutorial so far and would you like to support me and see more of me, just check out this link above in Patreon. I talk a lot about data visualization and Dash Plotly, and you'll get some more tips and tricks. And yeah, check me out. I would appreciate if you could support what I do. Okay. So go down into this this file. After the updating 5 cards, go into the line chart. This is the first chart we're going to create. So same thing here. We're taking 2 inputs, the start date and the end date, or the left DatePickerSingle, and then the right DatePickerSingle. This will be start, this will be end. Right here and right here. And then we're making a copy of the connections data frame, filtering the data, so it's only a data frame between those dates. And then we're counting the values of each per month, right? We're counting how many rows per month. Now this month column does not come with your LinkedIn data. This month column is something that I created in the global data. So when the app first starts, I'm creating this month column. I'm taking the connected on column, which is this date right here, connected on April 2nd, 2021, and so on and so on. And I'm extracting only the month. So I'm only extracting this one, the 4, right? Sorry, 4 right here. This I'm extracting inside a new column that's going to be called month. Those will be 4, this will be 3, and so on and so on. So I'm extracting that, creating this month column, and then I'm applying a lambda function with abbreviated month. So 4 would become April, 2 would become February, 1 would become January, and now I have names of months instead of numbers. So I'm taking this month column and I'm counting the number of rows per month. So let's say January I have 10. In February I have 20, and May I have 50. So then I have this new data frame. I'm making it into a data frame. I'm resetting the index. I'm calling the 0 column. I'm going to call it total connections, in place true. And now I have a clean data frame. If you're not sure what I'm doing here, just print it out. Just print DFF head and do the same thing. Do the same thing here. and do the same thing here. So each time you'll see what is actually happening between these lines of code. I sometimes do that to understand the code a little bit better. And then, now that I have my clean data frame filtered, I'm building the Plotly Express line chart. Now this line chart comes from here. I'm going to add this link under the video, the Plotly Express high-level interface. Go down to the line chart, and you'll see all the different attributes that you need in order to create the line chart. You don't need all of them. You usually need only the top 3 attributes to assign value to them. So in here, the data frame is going to be DFF that I'm using. The x-axis is going to be the month column. The y-axis is going to be the total connections column. And the title is going to be this. So that's why I have x-axis, the month. Whoops. Can move that around a little bit. The total connections is the y-axis. And then this is the title, right? I'm also using a template, the ggplot2 template, which is kind of neat. It has this gray background and white lines, which I take from here. I'll also put this link under the video. These are all the templates that Plotly offers, like built-in templates. So you can change it if you want. Okay, and then I'm updating the traces and I'm updating the layout of the figure line. So here, updating the traces, the mode is going to be line plus markers. So if you go here, you'll see, if you go here, you'll see there's going to be a line and these markers. I'm adding these dot markers on each value. And the color is going to be blue, and I'm going to fill 20y. So I'm going to fill this blue shaded area from the line chart on the y-axis all the way from the top all the way to the 0 to the bottom, right? And I'm changing the margins. I'm updating the layout so the margins are smaller. By default, this is 80, 80, and 80, and 80 bottom, top, right, left. And so there's a lot of space in the margins. I want to make the space a little bit smaller so then this plot looks bigger. Okay, change it and see what happens. Change it back to 80, change this to 80, and see how the plot becomes a little bit smaller because there's more space in the margins. Now you might ask, how, even before that, I built the figure line object, I return it into the figure attribute of this line chart ID. The figure attribute is right here. This is the empty dictionary. So this is where I'm returning the fig.line or fig_line to the figure attribute of the line chart of this graph component. So this graph component at the beginning, when we initiate the app, is empty. It looks like this, right? But immediately, once we initiate the app, the callback is triggered and it creates this line chart based on the initial date values, and then it puts this line chart, assigns it to the figure attribute. And that is how you make plots with Dash. You assign a Plotly Express or a graph objects figure to the figure attributes of the Dash graph component, core component. All right, you might be asking, before we go into the bar chart, you might be asking, how do I know update traces, update layout? How do I know to use margin, to use mode or fill? Where does this come from? So I'm going to teach you a little bit about the documentation in the next 2 minutes so you can actually do similar dashboards or different dashboards on your own. So usually if it's update traces, usually it refers to the type of graph that you're using. So if I'm doing a line chart, I'm going to look at update traces. I'm going to go here, go to Python. I'm going to put this link under the video. Go into figure reference, and then look at the traces type, and look at the bar chart. Now you know you have to update traces. And here I'm saying I want to change the mode. Like I want to change the line and the markers so we have actually these dots. So if you don't know what the attribute is, you don't know its mode, you just do Control F and just do markers, right? Oops. Marker, let me see here. Here you go. Is it? Here. Update traces, mode line plus markers. So we're going to go here again. Let's go back here. We're actually going to, instead of bar, we're doing the line chart. Line chart is pretty much like scatter. It's the same thing. I'm going to Control F and just put markers because you want to change the markers. And if you search for it, you'll see that it's under the mode attribute. So here it will tell you figure, update traces, mode equals, and these are the different options that you can put, right, as strings. So I put update traces, mode, line markers. And then fill, you can read all about the fill if you go back here. Fill. Control F, fill. So fill is an attribute in itself, fig update traces, but instead of fig, we are using our fig line because this is our figure object that we just created. This is this. And we're using this option 20y. So it'll give you different options and you can read more about it right here, or just change it and see what you prefer to have. So this is how you search for the traces information. Now, if you're updating layout or you're updating axes, then you go to the layout section of the documentation. So instead of going to traces, go into the layout section, which is down here below. You can start with a title, and then you can search for whatever you want, whatever attribute you want here, right? So here in the layout, we were changing the margins, right? Because we want less of a margin. So you can go Control F, margin, and then you'll see here margin is a dictionary and it contains one or more of the keys listed below. And this is what it means. The default is 80, right? So this is how I found that information on the line chart or the layout of every single graph. Okay, in the bar chart, this is the next chart. The next chart is the bar chart right here. And the bar chart, we're starting very similarly to the line chart. We're taking these two dates, we're copying the connections data frame, filtering the data frame to those two dates, and then we're counting the number of rows or values for each company, right? So it's like group by. So the Ninja's company might have 100 rows, 100 values, and then maybe the Plotly company, it might be represented 50 times inside this data frame. So I'm taking only the first 6 companies. I don't want 100 markers here. I just want 6 markers. So then I'm putting everything into a data frame again, resetting the index, renaming the 0 column to total connections, and then I'm creating the Plotly Express bar chart. And I'm putting the DFF as a data frame I'm using. X is going to be the total connections, Y-axis is company, X is total connections, Y-axis is company, and then I'm making sure that's horizontal. So the orientation is horizontal, orientation H. Now this, usually all the information, all the attributes, template, Y, orientation, inside the Plotly Express methods can be found here. You go back, this link is under the video. This one, go to bar chart, bar, and then you'll see the different attributes in here with a deeper explanation. So you see we have an orientation attribute right here that will explain what values you can assign to it. Then we're updating the layout like we did before, updating the traces, so the marker color is blue, and then the tick angle is 45. So you see it's not 90, it's 45. Okay, a waste of a sentence. We're inputting or returning this object, the figure that we created, inside the figure attribute of the bar chart. So if you go, this is connected to the layout. And the bar chart in the layout, where are you? I think it's right here. Right here. Bar chart, this is the figure attribute. So instead of a dictionary, it's fig_bar. It's our new figure bar chart that we created inside this column card right here. Right here. All right. And then we're doing the same thing with the pie chart. We're very similar. Making a copy of the messages data frame, filtering the data by date, and then I'm taking the from column that is equal to Adam Schroeder. If the from column is equal to Adam Schroeder right here, it means that I sent obviously the message because I'm the from. And so if I take the length of this filtered data frame, the number of rows will be equal to the number of messages sent because each row is one message. The length of this data frame that's filtered, where the value under this column does not equal me, is the number of messages received. And then I just create the pie chart, Plotly Express Pie. The names are going to be sent and received. So there's going to be 2 pie slices, sent and received. So you need 2 values. So they're exactly the same array length, 2 and 2 items. And this is going to be equal to whatever number, and this is going to be equal to the number of messages received. So that's why if you change, you see here 56% and 43%, you see the values 1227, 940. If I increase this, dates is more time, so I'll probably have more messages sent and more messages received, 1680 and 1391. With a similar percentage. Seems like it's a similar percentage between received and sent all the time. Right, the last one is the Wordcloud. I'm taking the same dates, and I'm putting everything into, I'm making a copy of the connections data frame. I'm filtering the dates, the start date and end date, but I'm taking the DFF position column. And then this is my DFF, and then I create the Wordcloud, which is the library that I import right here. Right? I'm taking the Wordcloud, and I'm creating a background color. It's white. By default, it's black. Making a height of 275 pixels, generating it, and joining the DFF, which is the filter data frame. Only the position column. The position column in the connections is this one right here. So these are all the names of the position. Director, engineer, consultant, whatever the names are. And it creates the Wordcloud. But then I have to put it inside a Plotly graph. So I'm going to put it inside a Plotly image show, I guess, plot. And my Wordcloud is the first attribute. So if you go here, let's go back. Let's do image show right here. And the first attribute is the img, is the image. So the image equals my Wordcloud. We get the same template and this title. And that's it. I'm making the x-axis invisible and the y-axis invisible, and that is how this is created, right? If we change the dates right here, you'll see that this changes as well accordingly. So now it's more of different titles. Obviously, the more common the word, the bigger the word would be. Remember, this is returning the figure cloud that was just created to the figure attribute of the Wordcloud component ID, which is right here. Right here. This is where it's returning it, right here. Okay? So I hope you learned a lot. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please click the, what is that called? Not sign up, I'm going blank, the subscribe button on YouTube, and click on the notifications, turn on your notifications so you can get notified when next week I come up with another video. And check out my Patreon. Check if you want to see more of me and see more Dash Plotly tips and tricks, or just support what I do. I'd love to see you become one of my Patreon members. Never give up, keep practicing, and always remember we're better together, so help each other out. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.